How did a conflict, whose consequences are still felt today, arise due to black diggers searching for the Ark on the Middle East? This story began in 1906 in Finland, far from Jerusalem. It was then still part of the Russian Empire. An unsuccessful land surveyor and local poet, Walter Juvelius, announced to the enlightened public that he had deciphered the biblical code. He claimed that he had studied Jewish texts of the Old Testament for many years and found the solution. The cracking of the secret cipher from the Holy Scripture was even confirmed by spirits during a seance. The fact is that it was precisely at the turn of the centuries, in the era of modernism, that our European world was gripped, first and foremost, by various occult teachings, of all kinds, from outright Satanism to attempts to rethink Christian and Jewish teachings. And Walter Juvelius, as a person who had also read these books, like half of all the educated intelligentsia of Europe, decided that he could say something about it. And what Walter Juvelius said was the following. Now he knew where one of the main Jewish shrines, the Ark of the Covenant, was located. Excavations should be conducted south of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Juvelius began to look for companions for the expedition. The team turned out to be extremely motley. A Finnish poet, a medium from Switzerland, a cricket champion, a captain of the Swedish fleet, and not a single archaeologist. Everyone had a burning desire to go to Jerusalem immediately, but there was not enough money for it. Juvelius traveled extensively throughout Europe, seeking sponsors for his adventure, and he meets a man in Great Britain named Montagu Parker, a man who was a hereditary aristocrat, a veteran of the Anglo-Boer War, a man of certain weight in English high society, but most importantly, he could obtain the money. Walter Juvelius's stories impressed Count Montagu Parker, and he came up with a way to raise funds. The Briton founded a syndicate, selling shares to impressionable aristocrats like himself. The list of sponsors included wealthy individuals from the USA, England, and Sweden. In 1909, the fledgling but very ambitious archaeologists finally received the necessary sum and set off in search of the ancient shrine. This company heads to Jerusalem and, naturally, plans to dig under the Temple Mount. Such an expedition required very serious support. They needed to obtain a concession. Naturally, Jerusalem was under Ottoman rule at that time, and they needed to obtain this permission, which was done through a monetary bribe. 500 British pounds, approximately $80,000 today, proved to be a weighty argument. Montagu Parker and Company received permission to excavate, but with one very important condition. All work must be done only at night without attracting attention. The reasons for this were compelling. To excavate a place at the Temple Mount, which is a sacred site for all three Abrahamic religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. The Dome of the Rock Mosque is located there, as is the Temple of the Lord, and the Western Wall, the only remaining part of the Second Jewish Temple. In general, to dig there was sacrilege for representatives of all three religions. Nevertheless, the newly minted archaeologists eagerly began the excavations, although none of them had the skills or knowledge for it. One of the expedition members even insisted that the Ark of the Covenant should be sought on Mount Ararat. Apparently Noah's Ark was the only one he had heard of. The Ark is a chest made of a special wood, most likely acacia. It was covered with gold. Both the Torah and the Old Testament provide very detailed instructions on how it was built, how it should be carried, and how everything was arranged inside this portable tabernacle. It was adorned with gold, and inside were placed the main relics of the Jewish people. There were the tablets of the covenant, the very Decalogue, the 10 Commandments recognized in Christianity. There were other artifacts, which are debated. An important point. According to the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant is not just a repository of sacred tablets. It is a powerful spiritual symbol associated with real miracles. The destruction of the walls of Jericho, the parting of the waters of the Jordan River. When King Solomon built the Jerusalem temple, the Ark was placed in a special hall called the Holy of Holies. In 586 BC, the army of Nebuchadnezzar II destroyed and plundered the ancient city. All valuable items from the Temple of the Lord ended up in Babylon. After this, there are no more mentions of the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible. Now, On the Temple Mount stand two of the greatest mosques of Islam. There is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam after Mecca and Medina. It is believed that it was from there that the Prophet Muhammad was miraculously transported from Mecca and ascended to heaven. There is also the Dome of the Rock Mosque, which covers the very cornerstone revered in both Islam and Judaism. And of course, this is the place of the creation of the world, recognized by Christianity, since the Old Testament of Judaism is also recognized by the Christian religion. All these religious nuances bothered the team of Montagu Parker little. They dreamed of becoming rich. The hapless archaeologists advanced underground, deeper into the mountain in search of the Ark of the Covenant. But all they managed to find were a couple of ancient lamps and clay vessels. There were no traces of gold or even silver. The work continued for 2 years. The term of the secret permit for excavations was expiring, and there were no successes. Montagu Parker decided to take extreme measures. Allowing such a desperate move, Parker made his fatal mistake. In the end, he bribed an Islamic sheikh responsible for the protection and patronage of Islamic holy sites in Jerusalem and convinced him, through bribery, to allow excavations directly under the dome of the Rock Mosque. At Parker's insistence, the sheikh sent all the guards from the mosque to a Muslim festival outside the city. The temple complex was left almost unattended. For the next 9 nights, Parker's people frantically dug in various places, but to no avail. On the 10th night, the British aristocrat went all in. Along with a couple of men, he climbed into a small cave directly under the dome of the Rock Mosque and began to hack at the stone. This was noticed. Most likely, it was some accidental witness, but the rumor and news that there was some kind of excavation under the holy site, and obviously by people of non-Eastern appearance, Europeans, caused shock, horror, and then a storm of indignation among all confessions, among all the people who lived in Jerusalem, followed by panic and anger. The Muslims of Jerusalem took to the streets. Riots began. The media picked up the story. Rumors spread around the world that foreigners had stolen Moses' staff, the tablets with the 10 Commandments, and all of Solomon's treasures. Montagu Parker and his friends fled, fearing for their lives, but they did not feel guilty. The adventure seekers did not despair. They were ready to return to Jerusalem and continue their search because they believed their guess was correct, even though it was based on such unreliable mystical experiences of one person. By the way, the person who started all this, the Finnish poet Walter Juvelius, had sailed home a year earlier. He fell ill with malaria and was bitterly disappointed in the venture. But Montagu Parker continued to believe in success. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, facts of bribing local authorities were revealed. Mass unrest was brewing. To investigate all the circumstances of this story, authoritative Islamic leaders from India were involved. The commission concluded that the foreigners had not stolen the holy relics. The British authorities breathed a sigh of immense relief. In short, the chaos they created lasted for several months. It ended with the realization that, apparently, this was not some deliberate policy of the British authorities, but protests against them were held regularly, and protests demanding punishment for those who dared to dig. With their reckless actions, the company of adventurers ignited a conflict whose echoes are still felt today. Local Arabs realized that the protection of the sanctuary could not be entrusted to the Ottoman Empire. This should be done by the Palestinians. The scandalous story also became a cause of conflicts between the Muslims of Jerusalem and Jewish immigrants and pilgrims who came to the Western Wall to pray. But then Montagu Parker could not even imagine such consequences.